Isn't it curious how on some tracks, most of your lap time is lost in just 1 or 2 corners? Well, you're not the only one. I'm Marian, and today I'm going to show you the most practical way to turn your worst corners into your best. This is the type of video that I wish I had when I first started sim racing, so if you will find value in this video, give it a like along the way. This is how I know that you are enjoying it. Let's get started. When you're struggling with a frustrating corner, the first step is to recognize that if it feels hard for you, chances are that corner is hard for others too. Take the Wall of Champions. Most drivers fear crashing there, so it's not just you. Once you understand that, it shifts your mindset. Instead of beating yourself up, you start asking the right questions. What exactly makes this corner difficult? Where am I losing time or confidence? And that's where the real change begins. And let me show you now a nice drill. This is what I call the slow-mo approach. So for example, let's say we're trying to improve into this corner, and instead of pushing hard and doing a big mistake in racing line, for example, arriving here, bring the car back on the left and then cutting on the right side, which is not efficient, we will go a lot slower in the corner. So we won't push the entry as much. We'll brake nice and early, and we will try to have the perfect racing line going very close to these black boxes right here, cutting as much as we can, bring the car in the center, and then taking the perfect apex in the last corner. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to fix the racing line first by going slower. When we're trying to improve and when we get better at this, the next step is to push the exit. So not the entry. We're still gonna be slow on our way in, cutting as much as we can, but here on our way out we'll be a lot more aggressive. You see, keeping it flat out and taking this corner completely flat and using all the exit. And the third step and final step is to push the entry as well. So now we'll brake a bit later, a bit harder. We'll see that we're gaining time on entry, and we will still try to make this corner work. You see, we're gaining a lot of time from the entry, taking this one flat out as well. And this is how you apply the slow-mo method. Once again, going very slow, nailing the racing line, then pushing on the exit, making sure you're getting a very strong exit, and finally pushing the entry and putting everything together. Now for longer corners, I use what I call the checkpoint method. And the checkpoint method is such a powerful way of making corners more consistent and to deal with corners where the visibility is not as good. Take for example, here, last corner in Sebring. We use the number 3 cone to turn in, the number 2 cone to brake, and from now on we will build a series of checkpoints, and we want the car to go through each of these checkpoints one by one. The first one is this gold line on the right side. We want to have the right tires on it. Now the second checkpoint is this white line. We want to have the car positioned so that the white line is in the center of the car. And from now on, we're trail braking, following the gold line on the right side. The moment that we get close to the bridge and we see this corner in the wall where the gold line is following it, we want to press the throttle and push our right tires on the gold line. This is our third checkpoint. Our fourth is once again the gold line where it changes the directions and it goes to the right side even more. We want to have the right tires on it. And finally, the last checkpoint is getting very close to this wall. So you see, the visibility on entries is poor. You can't see the full corner. But if you go through checkpoints one by one, then it's simple to have a corner more consistent. Now this is super important. Using labels, identifying the corner type. Is it a double apex? Is it a chicane? Is it a hairpin? Or is it something else entirely? Labeling the corner helps you instantly recall what kind of technique it demands. For example, a hairpin usually requires hard straight line braking and a late apex. A double apex corner needs a balanced approach. You can't just treat it like two separate turns. And the chicane tests your precision with curb cutting and fast hand movements. I cover all these corner types plus the special corners such as compression, off-camber, linked and many more in my courses. But if you want a short summary of the main pain points and the main things that you want to focus on these types of corners, here they are. The main idea is for you to be able to know what type of corner you're dealing with. Because when you label a corner, you're not just naming it, you're giving your brain a game plan. Once you have the label, ask yourself two questions. What does this corner type generally punish, and what's this corner type generally rewarding? And here's another example. Here in the corkscrew, the moment that we go downhill is this portion right here where the track dips down and there's a lot of available grip. A lot of vertical force pushing the tire into the tarmac, meaning you will have a lot more grip and you have to take advantage of that grip. So you need to know ahead of time that, okay, this is called the compression zone, and in this type of zone we have a lot more grip. We need to do something with that available grip. So in this case, the moment that you feel that the suspension is being compressed, then you have to press the throttle aggressively. You have to smash the throttle so that you can get a good exit and take advantage of this available grip. So in a way, knowing ahead of time, knowing those little Lego blocks that create tracks is a big advantage, and it will help you deal with difficult corners a lot easier because you will have a plan for those corners. And if you really think about it, many of the difficult corners, for example turn 1 here at Daytona Road, have something in common. It's very hard to find a good reference point, and this makes you inconsistent. For example, here, what you need to do in those difficult corners is to find atomic references. What I mean by atomic references is a reference that's super precise, so that you will have more or less the same entry speed each time. And in this case, you have to be creative. You see here this black rubber line. What we're using here is this dotted line, the one in the middle. So when this line will be blocked by the A pillar, that's the moment when we start braking. So right now the line is not visible anymore and we are applying the brakes. This is the level of precision that you need to achieve in those difficult corners in order to make them easier. Let me give you a couple more examples. Here's the hairpin of Road Atlanta, this one right here. What's our reference for braking here? It's the moment where we straighten up the wheel. When we have 0 degrees on the steering wheel angle and we position the car, that's the moment where we apply the braking. And this will be super consistent because every time that you're straightening up the wheel and you're positioning the car, you're gonna be braking. So if you will look for a visual reference, you can't find any in this corner, and it's also is gonna consume some mental power, processing power, is gonna delay your actions. So braking based on feel, when the moment that we straighten up the wheel, is such a good way to deal with this corner and to make it faster and more consistent. Here's another example of being creative. This is my world record lap at Magny course in F3. So honestly, it's one of my best laps of all time. And in this corner right here, the reference for putting the throttle is super important because it can gain you a lot of lap time down the big straight. And what I'm using here in order to know when to push the throttle are these white panels on the horizon line. So I'm not looking in front of the car, I'm looking at the horizon line. I want to have the antenna past the last panel on the building of the marshals right here. So when the antenna goes on the building of the marshals, that's where I know that I have to push the throttle. This is a very precise reference, and it will allow me to be super aggressive all the time, to have the right timing in the corner, to commit to 100% throttle, to stay there and use all the track. And here's one of the most difficult corners of a track. It's a blind corner towards the right side. Look how it happens. You see, this right-hander, you can't properly see it when you're just preparing it. So this will be considered a very difficult corner, a corner where you will lose lap time. You need a very good reference for turning in. You need to know when to start turning in the corner, when to do the lift, and so on. So what I'm using here is this white line. The exact moment where the left tires gets to the white line is the moment when I'm steering into the corner. So even though it's a blind corner, I can still make it, and I can consistently make it. That's the idea. We want to be faster on average. So once again, having a precise reference, not just any reference, but a very precise one, it's mandatory to improve in those difficult corners, because that's the reason why those corners are difficult in the first place. They're not as the other ones. They have something else going on. In this case, a blind corner, no reference, that's easily usable. So finding something like this is genuinely how you will find more lap time. And to make it even more obvious, imagine this is a corner and this is a curb. And sometimes on some tracks, you will brake as a reference for braking at the beginning of the curb. So right here. This will be a quite consistent reference for braking. You will have a good time in the corner generally. But what if this braking point is way too early and you have to brake later? Let's say you're gonna brake in the middle of the curve, right here. This is still going to be quite consistent because you can easily approximate the middle of the curb sometimes. But what happens if your reference for braking will be on the end of the curb, so towards here or towards the first part of the curb? Then you will find inconsistencies because your reference for braking won't be as precise, as atomic as it should be. So in these instances, here and here, where you're not braking at the beginning or in the middle of the curb, you have to find something else. Maybe you need a secondary reference. So you will find something here more towards the left side that will give you a cue to brake, or maybe on the other side you'll find a reference, or maybe on the track itself, maybe it has some cracks on it and you will brake at the last crack. Something like that. You need to be more creative, because if you will say that, okay, I'm gonna brake where the curb ends, where exactly are you gonna brake? Because there's a big area that you can choose. This one right here. It's going to be in the beginning of the area, in the middle, or in the end. You see, it becomes very, very complicated to be consistent. So make sure you're finding atomic references as precise as you can, even multiple references, to make sure that all the time you're arriving and you're replicating those inputs more or less the same. What gets tracked gets improved. After a practice session or your race, just record your best and worst lap. It doesn't matter if your best still isn't great. The contrast between the best and the worst will make you realize the difference. What was different in that corner for you? Because you were driving in the same session. So just by putting them side by side, this can make you realize that maybe you're turning or you're prioritizing the exit more in the best lap, or vice versa. It's important for you to see it, and it's important to be obsessed with just recording your own laps. And even a simple adjustment like changing the brake bias can make a corner feel completely different, a lot more stable, a lot more in control. So make sure you're using all the changes that you can do within the car, the ABS, the TC, and the brake bias, because your current driving style may not be suited for that particular corner, or the car is not set up properly for that particular corner. So if it's in your control to change it, it's important to experiment with it. And also, if you don't want to redo this process all the time and just start from zero, start from scratch, you can also consider a setup shop. And I can honestly recommend Go Setups, as they have amazingly quick setups that are easy to drive. They spend a lot of time in testing, their team is top notch, and we also have a 10% discount code. So honestly, some of the corners can be a lot easier with the right setup or with the right adjustments. But in all honesty, comparing telemetry will still be the #1 way in which you can understand how you can gain more lap time in a corner. So we're using here Garage 61, which is a free telemetry agent, and we are comparing two different laps. And in this corner alone, the blue driver is losing almost half a second in this part of the track. So you can easily just look at the different lines, even without looking at the brake and throttle traces, and you can notice that the blue driver from entry here to exit here gets a lot wider than the red driver, which is way faster, half a second faster. So the reason why in this type of corner going that wide is not good, because you might think, well, he's using the exit more, is because the next corner is a right-hander. So as you can notice here in the throttle trace, the blue driver has to drop the throttle completely, whereas the red driver can still maintain it. So that's how he is losing a lot of lap time. He gets too wide on the exit and now has to bring the car to the left and then put it back out on the track. So just by looking at the different racing lines, you can get an idea on how to approach the corner. But if you want to get even more technical, you can look at the brake and throttle traces. You can zoom on them, you can see them clearly, and you can notice here that the red driver is braking later and harder. So he's gaining time on entry, and on throttle he's going to 100% throttle earlier, and he's able to maintain 100% throttle for longer. So just by seeing the racing line and these traces, you can instantly get an idea on how you can do differently in order, if you're the blue driver for example, what you can do differently in order to improve. Another thing that you can do, at least in iRacing, is using active resets to improve a corner. So for example, let's say I want to improve the next corner. I will set the start of the active reset here. I will just attempt to take this corner in front of me, and let's say I want to practice this corner even more. So instead of completing a full lap, I can just press a button and it brings me back to my set point. So I can stay in this corner as much as I want to, and I can try to improve my technique in this corner without spending too much time, because you can always press the button and go back, and in case you're crashing or something happens to the car, you don't have to go from the pits once again. You just press the button and you go back. This feature is specific to iRacing, and if you don't know how to configure it, you just have to type on YouTube active resets iRacing. You will find a video from iRacing team itself where they go into the details on how you can set this up. But if you want me to show it very quickly, I'm gonna do it as well. So you have to go to options, then you have to go to control, and then you will scroll up until you see these two names: active reset start point and active reset run. You basically need to bind those buttons to your wheel. The first one will save the current position and the second one will bring you back. And let me end up with one more thing, which I think it's the most valuable advice that I've got early on when I started sim racing, and that is, don't be sad when you're encountering a corner that kills your lap. I know it sucks, I know it's not good, you hate it, but if you think about it, that corner really emphasizes a weakness in your driving, on your way that you're perceiving the track. So instead of thinking that, oh my god, that corner is so difficult, maybe I won't race this track because of this corner, switch your way of thinking. If you're gonna master that corner, you will unlock some real potential. There's a lot of lap time to be gained. So with this frame and viewing that corner in this way, you will be more excited to push and fix that corner, or fix those problematic corners, and then really have a good time on the track. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was, give it a like, a subscribe. I'm happy to provide more content just like this, and I will be seeing you in the next one. Bye bye.